At a steady 100 miles per hour, most motorcycles fight back. Except this one. Kawasaki's fabled long-range machine did not just chase speed, it rewrote the rules of distance and comfort year after year. Its iconic fairing let riders slice through the wind with ease, making that speed feel like a Sunday cruise. A true legend for those who demand peak performance on long hauls. But how did a machine born of raw power become a favorite for those who crave endurance and thrill? The answers start with its first bold iteration. In 1988, Kawasaki unveiled a machine that set a new standard for speed and endurance, the GP Z1000RX. At its heart sat a 997 cubic centimeters, liquid-cooled, double overhead cam inline 4, an engine built for relentless power delivery. With a compression ratio of 10.2 to 1 and 4 valves per cylinder, the motor produced up to 124 horsepower at 9,500 revolutions per minute, pushing the bike to a top speed just shy of 143 miles per hour. The 6-speed gearbox was matched to a wet multi-plate clutch and chain final drive, making sure every ounce of power reached the pavement. The steel twin-spar frame anchored the bike, while cartridge front forks and a monoshock rear kept it planted at speed. Dual 280mm front discs and a single 260mm rear disc provided the stopping power needed to tame that performance. Weighing in at nearly 589 pounds with a full tank, the GP Z1000RX was no featherweight, but its mass translated into stability at triple-digit speeds. This was a bike that did not just promise speed, it delivered it, mile after mile. Riders who spent hours in the saddle began to notice small but meaningful changes on the 1989 GPZs. Kawasaki engineers added a subtle upper cowl lip to the fairing, extending just enough to redirect airflow at highway speeds. The effect was immediate for anyone pushing past the legal limit. A quieter pocket behind the screen and less helmet buffeting, especially on long stretches of open road. At the same time, the handlebar position saw a minor adjustment. The bars rose a few millimeters, easing the reach and taking pressure off wrists and shoulders. These tweaks, though easy to miss at first glance, made a real difference during multi-hour rides. Fatigue set in later, and the bike felt less demanding over distance. Owners who racked up big miles appreciated the blend of wind protection and relaxed control. The attention to rider comfort didn't come at the expense of the bike's sharp looks or its ability to slice through the air. Instead, the 1989 model quietly set a new benchmark for endurance-oriented sport touring, proving that small refinements could transform the feel of every mile. By 1990, Kawasaki's engineers had tuned the GPZ's character for riders who measured journeys in hundreds of miles, not just quarter miles. The most noticeable change came underneath the bodywork. Suspension valving was softened, giving the forks and shock a more forgiving response over broken pavement and long undulating highways. This wasn't just a minor tweak. Riders who had spent hours on earlier models described the new setup as a revelation, soaking up expansion joints and rough patches that once sent jolts through the chassis. The seat, too, saw a complete rethink. Gone was the flat, unforgiving perch of the first generation. In its place, a reshaped saddle with deeper contouring and denser foam cradled the rider, distributing weight more evenly and reducing pressure points. Leg reach and knee angle felt more natural, even for taller riders. Together, these updates transformed the GPZ into a true tourer, one that could cover 6 or 8 hours in the saddle without leaving its pilot numb or sore. For those who demanded comfort without sacrificing speed, the 1990 GPZ struck the perfect balance. At an even 100 miles per hour, the difference between a well-designed fairing and a bare-bones setup isn't just theoretical, it's something riders feel in their bones. On the GPZs, the angular fairing cuts a clean path through the air, letting the rider settle into a quiet bubble behind the windscreen. Vibration fades into background noise, and helmet turbulence drops away. One owner describes the sensation as almost serene, with the wind slipping past his shoulders instead of hammering his chest. Over a 45-minute high-speed run, hands stay steady on the grips, and neck muscles don't tense up the way they do on less refined machines. Swapping seats with a friend on a naked bike, the difference is immediate. Wind blast roars around the helmet, and every joint in the frame seems to buzz. The GPZ, by contrast, keeps the ride composed. Owners talk about finishing these long, fast stretches with a clear head and relaxed arms, not the numb fingers and stiff necks that come from fighting the wind. It's not just about comfort either. Less vibration and smoother airflow mean riders stay focused, alert, and ready for whatever comes next. On the open road, that's the kind of advantage that makes all the difference between pushing through fatigue and actually enjoying the ride. A long-haul machine is only as good as its numbers. The GPZ's instrument cluster puts essential data front and center, with large analog dials for speed and engine revs, paired with a fuel gauge and warning lights that keep the rider informed at a glance. On a full tank, the GPZ's 21-liter capacity translates to real-world legs of over 200 miles before reserve, provided the throttle is not pinned the entire way. Riders who dial in their carburetors and keep a steady hand on the highway often report stretches of 35 to 40 miles per gallon, making coast-to-coast ambitions more than just a fantasy. But endurance is not just about distance. It is about what happens when the ride gets demanding. Braking performance is critical on a bike that can cruise at triple-digit speeds. The dual 280mm front discs and a single 260mm rear disc offer strong initial bite. After repeated high-speed stops, riders notice the onset of fade. The lever feels a little softer, stopping distances stretch, and confidence can waver if the pace stays hot. It is a reminder that even a long-distance beast has limits when pushed hard. Mechanics and owners alike point to brake upgrades, braided lines, and better pads as common solutions for those who want to push the GPZ's endurance envelope even further. Every mile, every stop, every refill. On the GPZs, the data tells a story of speed, stamina, and the need for smart tuning to keep the ride amazing. Keeping a GPZ in top form starts with the basics. Mechanics recommend checking the suspension first. Progressive fork springs and cartridge kits make a noticeable difference, especially on older models where the stock setup can feel harsh over rough pavement. For riders planning big miles, swapping in these upgrades takes the edge off every bump and keeps the bike tracking true at speed. Next up are the brakes. Factory brake lines can flex and fade after repeated hard stops. So many owners install braided steel lines and fresh pads for better feel and shorter stopping distances. Heat management is another priority, and header wraps help keep engine temperatures in check during long, hot rides, reducing the risk of vapor lock and keeping things comfortable for the rider. When it comes to sourcing parts, the news is good. About 3/4 of the GPZ's components are shared with other Kawasaki models from the era. That means finding replacement seals, bearings, and even some bodywork is usually straightforward, whether you are restoring or just keeping up with regular maintenance. Ask a group of GPZ owners which year stands out, and a pattern starts to form. Most riders gravitate toward the 1990 model, citing its softer suspension and improved seat as the difference between surviving a long trip and actually enjoying it. Polls on dedicated forums show a clear lean toward these later years, with about 2/3 of respondents calling the 1990 their go-to for multi-day rides. The earlier 1988 version gets praise for pure speed and the sharp angular look, but riders mention the firmer ride and less forgiving seat as wear and tear on longer journeys. Common gripes across all years include brake fade under repeated hard stops, and the bike's weight in city traffic. On the flip side, owners consistently highlight wind protection, fuel range, and the bulletproof engine as major strengths. When it comes to restoration, most riders report budgeting between $2,000 and $5,000, with mechanics stressing the importance of suspension and brake upgrades above all else. In the end, the GPZ's reputation as a long-distance beast is not just about the specs. It is the collective experience of a community that knows what it takes to ride far and finish strong. Today, bikes chase comfort and speed with electronics and algorithms, but the GPZ 1100 proved that pure engineering, not digital trickery, can still thrill across continents. For every rider craving real connection, its legacy endures. It reminds us that adventure starts where the pavement blurs into memory, Share your stories below.